today's topic is, if you have an autoimmune condition, what foods should you eat? So everybody should eat these foods that I'm going to discuss, but especially those with autoimmune conditions. You should eat these foods that I'm going to talk about exclusively. That means these are the only foods that you should eat until you are completely well and you do not have any markers for these autoimmune conditions. And it's actually best to just only eat these foods. So if you didn't watch yesterday's live, that was on the foods to avoid that causes autoimmune conditions, or we should call them triggers. And the autoimmune conditions, there's so many, I couldn't possibly list them all. But, for example, MS, multiple sclerosis, cancer, lupus, there's just so many. And whatever condition that you have, so I have type 1 diabetes, and that at this time is not reversible, at least not that anyone knows how to reverse, but by eating these foods mostly or exclusively will definitely help, if you have type 1 diabetes, increase your insulin sensitivity, and you can eat more carbohydrates and you'll get better glucose numbers and lower cholesterol. So let's get right into it. And the reason why I am sharing this information, and it was because I didn't share all this information on yesterday's video, and I just forgot to, so my apologies for that. So the foods that you want to eat are anti-inflammatory foods that are not acidic. They are low in protein, which is especially helpful for those who have kidney disease, where you have to eat a low protein diet. And protein is very acidic, so you do want to lower your protein. Everybody should. Everyone actually eats too much protein. And so these are anti-inflammatory, and they will improve circulation, gut health, and on and on. Okay, so let's just start with the most important food to eat is vegetables. So any vegetable is healthy, and you should eat a wide variety of vegetables. There are no vegetables that are off limit unless they make you have a reaction, maybe an autoimmune reaction or an allergy. So we've got spaghetti squash, all squashes, potatoes, all potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, yellow potatoes, onions. Okay, and also the green vegetables, the broccoli, the baby greens. So green beans, all vegetables are healthy as long as they're not contaminated. And you want to look for, you want to make sure they're ripe too. And you want to look for certified organic if you can find them, because that means that they will have very little pesticides, which are autoimmune reacting, or they are full of chemicals, so we want to reduce the chemical load in our bodies. So all vegetables, great. Okay, eat as much as you can, and the goal is to eat at least a pound a day, and that's quite a lot. Unless you're eating potatoes, then it's super easy, and potatoes are yummy. Who doesn't love potatoes? Fruit is great. It's better to eat more vegetables than fruit, but fruit is wonderful. It's better not to put it in a smoothie and just eat it whole. So the less processed, the better. Again, all fruit is great. Vary it, and just eat it a little bit slower so that you don't get that big glucose spike. And I like to pair my fruit with a vegetable. So maybe a fruit with salad. And so, so I'll just try to have something that's less glycemic, like, something else green with it. So just a little bit slower on the fruit, especially if you're diabetic. and more on the vegetable side, but I still eat a decent amount of fruit a day. I probably have 3 to 4 different types of fruits a day, and beans. So beans are great, again, as many as you want. Just make sure they are cooked. And if you have trouble with beans, a lot of people have issues with their gut. They have too much bloating. So just start with a 1/4 cup a day and just work up every week, just adding a little bit more and more, and your body will get used to it. Because what happens is when you have gut dysbiosis, then when you eat a lot of fiber, and especially beans, then the bad bacteria, just think about, they're fighting with the good bacteria. So you've got to get rid of the bad stuff, add more of the good stuff, and you will heal your gut. And these foods will heal the gut because fiber is what's needed. So you want to get rid of the foods that do not contain fiber. Peas, legumes, whole grains. So obviously if you have issues with certain grains, then just eat the ones that you do not react to and the ones that you really enjoy. And so a whole grain is, for instance, if you're looking at oats, oat groats is the whole grain, but a lot of people are fine with oatmeal. So I eat oatmeal every morning and I don't have an issue with that. So quinoa, brown rice, white rice is usually okay. I would say because of the high arsenic in rice, eat other grains as well. Those are just a few examples. Herbs, all of them, fresh, great. Spices, teas, and sometimes it's okay for seeds. And Brooke Goldner recommends to limit the seeds, it's quite windy, to chia seeds and flax seeds, because those are the highest in omega-3s, and those are excellent and necessary to repair our bodies. And the other seeds, like the ones I love, like pepitas, which are, they just have a little bit too much on the omega-6s, and so we want more omega-3. So seeds are okay unless you have, you're trying to lose weight and you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease, so you may not want to do the seeds, or very, very limited amounts of chia and flax, because they are high in fat, and too much fat causes all the health problems we have today, most of them at least. Okay, so a lot of people will say, well, what about nuts? So nuts are healthy if you are not overweight, if you don't have heart disease or type 2 diabetes. Otherwise, and a lot of people have reactions to nuts and they may not even realize it. And if you're overweight, it's really tough. Nuts are super high in calories, and it's so easy just to grab a couple handfuls and then you've eaten, 500, 600 or more calories per day. So those are the foods to definitely eat every single day, a wide variety. And the other thing I want to talk about is how to cook these foods. So when I talked to Dr. Clapper, he's a plant-based doctor who is one of the experts in nutrition. And where I got all this information I talked about in the last video, a whole bunch of different doctors that are specialists in nutrition, and that is, they've studied it in detail, looked at all the research out there, and so this is what the consensus is. So the best thing to do is start with the foods that are least cooked. So the least processed, least cooked. So raw is a good starting point. And then from there, the next step up would be steaming your food. So then it's broken down, but not as much. And of course, it depends on how long you steam it. If you steam it until it's mush, that's not only disgusting, then you've cooked a lot of the nutrients out. Then sauteing. Now when you saute in a little bit of vegetable stock or water. And I have a video on my channel on how to saute without oil. You can boil your food. Of course, you don't want to boil it too much. And, oh, but let me back up. If you, I guess I wouldn't, I do some like soup is kind of boiling, and a stew, I'll do vegetable stew, and I guess I'm not really boiling it. I mean, maybe a little bit of a rolling boil, but the good thing about soups and vegetable stews, instead of like steaming and sauteing, is I'm consuming the broth, and the broth is where a lot of the nutrients are when you're cooking the food. So that's even better. So I can tell for myself, because I have a couple of different autoimmune conditions, that I actually feel really good when I eat a soup or a vegetable stew with beans, and then I actually throw in some greens in there as well. I usually like putting in some spinach in my soups and my stews. Okay, so those are the best. And then when you're well, then you can start baking your food. Now, some people are just, if they don't enjoy, steamed foods or sautéed, and maybe they just only like baked foods, you got to start somewhere. So start where you're at. So go ahead and bake the food. Of course, the lower the temperature, the better. And you don't want to heat it so high so that it's burnt, because then you're creating acrylamides, which are possibly carcinogenic. And so, again, more inflammation. So you don't want to overcook your food. Grilling is also problematic because you've got, the charcoal, the burnt parts that taste good but are not good for us. And what I also do not recommend, but if someone's not going to eat it or if they have no time, is microwave. I haven't eaten microwave foods in probably 3 years. And so if I'm reheating my food, I'll heat it in the oven, or I'll reheat my food on the stovetop. And it does take a little bit longer, but it's, feeling good is my priority. So that's what I recommend. Actually, it's not what I recommend. It's what science says works best for everybody. So if you have any questions, please let me know what your questions are. Okay, so there's a question that someone said, that there is a woman who is on YouTube, and she has MS, multiple sclerosis, and she was in a wheelchair, and she was declining. She wasn't originally in a wheelchair. She just ended up in a wheelchair due to her disability. And so she decided to get rid of the processed foods and get rid of dairy. And she was able to get out of her wheelchair and walk again. And it's pretty amazing. And she has a great tale to tell. So, yes, she did not get rid of all the foods that I talked about in the last video. And people can recover by doing some of the things that I've mentioned, and not all of them, which is great. So, she is one person, and she's very particular, and she is one success story. So the other doctors that have helped people with autoimmune conditions that have had great success are Dr. Brooke Goldner, and she is a specialist in reversing lupus. And Dr. McDougall has also said that he has had patients reverse MS. Lots of them reverse RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and there's numerous other conditions. And of course, tons and tons from type 2 diabetes. So yeah, you can get better by doing some of the things, but here's the thing, is a lot of people do not do this. It's called prevention. So if you just stick to the healthy anti-inflammatory alkalizing foods, which are the ones that I mentioned, that will help you prevent conditions in the future. Now, I'm not saying this is 100%, but it will make it more likely that you're going to live longer and healthier, and less likely to have debilitating conditions that will land you in the hospital, or your body start breaking down and be in pain, and yeah, cost you a lot of money and be on medication. So that's really important. So there is a special right now that's going on. It's going to end tomorrow. So if you're watching this today live, it is Saturday, the 11th, and the special that I'm going to talk about is the ultimate vegan health and weight loss bundle, and it includes over 100 items. It includes over 1,000 recipes, and the recipes are all in the anti-inflammatory, alkalizing category. And these are great because this is what you would need if you are looking for a really healthy diet, if you're looking for the recipes. This is a wonderful tool for you to grab onto. So it's $49, and there's so much in there. It even has 2 detox programs. It has lectures from doctors, plant-based doctors, that will really be educational. And I included some of my plant-based recipes and some exercise programs, because exercise is very essential as well. You got to move every single day. So Dr. Michael Greger says that everyone should exercise 90 minutes a day. And if you watch his videos, he'll do his lectures while walking on a treadmill, which is pretty incredible. You think, oh my gosh, I've heard people say 90 minutes, that's too long. It's really not bad. If you think, if you're going to eat 3 times a day, take a walk 30 minutes after every meal. And everyone doesn't have the luxury to do that because they're working. When I was working for somebody else, what I did is I asked my employer if I could come in a little bit later, and so I could get my workout done in the morning, and then I had a shorter lunch, and then at lunch I would go for a walk, and then I would just like eat my food on my break. And then when I went on a break, I would take a quick walk. So I was able to get close to 90 minutes every day, except on days when it was really cold. Then it was a little bit harder to do that, because especially when it's raining. So exercise is really helpful as well. Get well prevention is the key, and I know it is hard to change your eating habits, but when you feel well, you never want to feel sick again. And I'm a part of a lot of Facebook groups, and I've heard from so many different people and seen their stories on how they start feeling so wonderful and they're able to do things they weren't able to do in just 2 weeks. And I've heard that people are able to reverse even lupus, at least their reactions to it, in just 6 weeks. So it's really possible. And Dr. McDougall says that if you don't feel better in about 2 to 3 months, then you need to change it up. And then check out my previous video on autoimmune, where I go into a little bit of more detail about what things you can try if one system doesn't work. All right, so best of luck to you, best of health to you, and hope to see you soon. Bye.